What are the two best animals for homesteading? How's it going, you guys? It's Matthew here from Sovereign Sustainability. We are going to find out what are the two best animals that you can have on a homestead. Now, we have a variety of animals here on this homestead. We've got alpacas, llamas, sheep, cattle, dogs, cats, chickens, ducks. We've got worms. In the past, we've had horses, goats, geese. We've had a lot of animals here. So we're gonna go over the pros and cons of the animals that we have on this property to see which two animals are gonna be the best for your homestead. So follow along and figure out what are the two best animals for your homestead. Before we get to the top two animals that are best for your homestead, do me a favor, drop a comment below. What are your two top picks for animals on a homestead? Go. What's up, guys? All right, so we got alpacas and llamas. Alpacas and llamas have a lot of pros and a lot of cons. Let's start with the alpacas. So the first pro for alpacas, they've got some of the best fiber. If you look at cashmere sheep versus a lot of different types of alpacas, a lot of alpaca fiber has more microns than cashmere wool. Another pro for, this will be for both alpacas and llamas, they don't eat a lot. A lot of these alpacas might eat a pound of hay a day. So if you throw one average square hay bale in there, they can weigh around almost 70 pounds a bale. That can last 70 days per alpaca. Now, mind you, some of them are going to eat up to 2 pounds, especially male alpacas. However, the point is they don't eat a lot of food. So those are two of the pros. Great fiber, don't eat a lot. Another pro I'll mention, they don't take up a lot of space. You don't need a ton of land for alpacas. Right now, it's below freezing. So we've moved our alpacas into this little carport bay and put some massive hay bales in here. They're spitting on me. And then we put their water just right out the back. So they can walk around if they want. Typically when it gets like 20 degrees or less, we don't see them outside too much unless it's sunny. But that's another pro. They don't take up a lot of space. Another pro is their temperament is pretty mellow. Even the male alpacas we've had, most of the male alpacas that we have had have been super friendly. The worst is they might kick you or spit on you. But other than that, they're not the most dangerous animals on the planet. Having kids around them is a little bit easier than, say, a full-grown horse or a cow or bull with big horns. And that leads me to the final pro, which is they're not very dangerous animals. I think that's an extremely important pro when thinking about having a homestead with animals. You know, if you have a massive bull who's dangerous, or you have a horse who bucks and kicks, or you have a buck goat that likes to headbutt, those are all things that can be pretty dangerous. And not only is it dangerous for you as an adult, but also for if you have kids. And so for me, I think that's one of the most important pros is, you know, how dangerous are the animals? Because for me, homesteading, it's not my main thing. It is something that I do a lot, but I can't afford to get injured because I'm also an athlete. I also do mixed martial arts. I also run a business. I also have kids. I've got a lot of things that I do outside of this. And so to me, I do not want to waste an injury just simply because I like the animal for another reason. That's another pro. They're not very dangerous. As far as cons go, honestly, I don't see a lot of cons here. If one con would be that if you're trying to have animals for meat, I don't know what to say about the flavor of the meat. Obviously, people don't eat alpaca and llama too frequently, so I would assume that it's probably pretty gamey. I can't verify that for certain because we're a no butcher farm. We don't butcher our animals here. I can't verify the flavor of an alpaca or llama. Some other cons, sure, they do kick and they do spit, so those are things you got to watch out for. We have a llama here. Llamas are more known for spitting than alpacas, and she never spits on us. And she's got her son is the little white mixed one right over here. He doesn't spit either. So we've been very blessed. We don't get spit on too much. If I feed them supplement, they might spit, but they're not spitting at me. They're spitting at each other, and I just happen to be in the crossfire. Other than that, they're pretty cold hardy. I've also seen them in desert territories too. We were in, I think it was Cottonwood, Arizona, near Sedona, and there was an alpaca farm out there. So it seems to me that they can not only live in cold environments like this, but they can also live in hot environments. The only other con that I can really think of is there are some things that they have been known to get sick with. I know that white-tailed deer out here can carry some sort of bacteria or virus that they can get and die from. So there are certain vaccinations that people recommend because of the white-tailed deer population. Other than that, we've never really had our alpacas or llamas get sick. One more thing I will mention is, especially on the alpaca side, some predators can easily take them down. Cougars, bears, those ones specifically. Now, for some differences between the alpacas and llamas. Llamas are bigger in stature. You can see Pele right here. She's this one right here that's sniffing my hand. She is obviously bigger than the other females. You can see this is the average female alpaca size, and then you got the average llama size right there. She's definitely bigger. So pros of the llama, they're better for protecting your flock. They're good flock protectors. On the morning that my second son was born, we had a home birth. We were downstairs. Everybody was just getting up around 6 because my wife was getting contractions. And I look outside and I see all of our chickens and ducks migrating across our field. And Pele right here comes slowly walking across the field. She sees a coyote on the other side of the fence. She looks over, she sniffs the coyote, and she spits in its face, and the coyote runs off. They're really good for defending a pack. So that's a pro of a llama versus an alpaca. Alpacas don't have that same defensive instinct from what I've seen and from what I've heard, but llamas definitely have that, and they are bigger. On top of that, too, I have heard of llamas stepping on and killing coyotes, foxes, and things of that size. Another benefit, another pro of having a llama is they are actually rideable and packable. So you can pack out an elk, you can pack out deer with llama. Obviously, if I'm going to pack out an elk, I'm going to need more than one llama. However, they can carry quite a bit of weight, much more percentage-wise than an alpaca. Some cons for them compared to the alpacas is typically their fiber is not worth as much, and it's not as comfortable or coveted like the alpaca fibers. Typically, the alpaca fiber is going to have more microns per unit. In my opinion, though, I love Pele's fiber. She's got beautiful fur. It's probably my favorite out of all the ones that we have personally, but typically the alpacas are going to have richer fiber. And to back that up, in South America, royalty would typically have alpaca fiber type clothings and blankets and that kind of stuff, whereas the peasants would typically have llama fiber everything. So that's the difference. Main thing, llamas, really good for protection and packing things out. Alpacas are better for fiber. Other than that, they're very similar animals. So we live on both. They're all awesome, super cool animals. Highly recommend them. All right, so now we're talking about cattle, specifically Highlander cows. Some pros, some cons. Here we go. So let's start with the pros. So one of the pros, once again, this does not apply to our farm. We are a no butcher farm. We don't butcher our animals here. One pro of cattle is they obviously have a lot of meat. So you can have one animal that you can butcher versus mini alpaca, and you're gonna get a lot more meat off of them. Highlanders, these guys right here, they're probably 1,800 pounds. You know, you're gonna get at least half of that in meat. It's a lot of meat for these guys. These guys are big Highlanders. So that's the first pro, a lot of meat. Another pro, cattle are pretty hardy. Most cattle in the United States of America don't need shelter. These guys, we have a nice little loafing shed for them that they can go underneath. They've got some trees they can hide underneath. They're very cold hardy, so they won't freeze to death. These guys can withstand extreme temperatures. Not all cattle are created equal. There are different cattle that are gonna have different levels of cold and heat tolerance. So do your research. These Highlanders have very much a lot of cold tolerance. Another pro is the milk. So we've got a little baby calf back here. There he is. And there's mama. So obviously you can milk the female and get milk from them. And they produce large sums of milk. Large animal, large amounts of milk. So once again, I would say most of the pros related to having cattle is gonna be their food production. Lots of meat, lots of milk. Now let's talk about some of the cons. The first con, in my opinion, is these are large animals with horns, so they are dangerous. When we first brought this female and this male here, we had to rope them and move them to a spot, and we had to walk them in between our house and our apartment. During that process, they were bucking and kicking, and they were running 20 to 30 yard spans as we were holding them on this rope. So super dangerous, especially with, somewhere between 1,200 and 1,800 pound animal. So that's my biggest con with these animals, is that they are dangerous. And unless you're a cowboy, which I am not, I've done some cowboy work, but not enough to call myself a cowboy. It is a dangerous job. It's why people who ride bulls or do cowboy type work have lots of injuries, broken bones, cuts, all kinds of injuries. So they're dangerous animals. That's the biggest con, in my opinion, for cattle. 2, they are big animals, so that means they need large sums of food. I have to push these 900 pound bales in here because if I threw bales in by hand, they'd be going through one a day easily, if not a couple a day. I have to give them a lot of food, so I push these 900 pound bales in here. If you don't have a tractor, in my opinion, they're not very realistic animals. So I have to move these 900 pound bales into the cow spot by myself with my muscles, no tractor. And so I have to use a little bit of physics and strength. And on top of that, depending on how much land you have, sustainably, let's say the hay market dies or the supply chain goes down, I have to figure out how to feed these animals. These animals eat a lot. So walking them through these woods to find them food is going to take forever. So you need a lot of land. If I'm not mistaken, I was told in the state of Montana, you need about 25 acres per head of cattle. And that's because 1, they can only graze for so long, and 2, you need to harvest the hay for winter because they can't eat grass in the winter. I might have butchered those numbers, no pun intended. Do some research, they require a lot of hay, a lot of food. And I live here in Idaho, so just like Montana, we're gonna need a lot of acres per head of cattle to feed them. Another con too goes back to that space, a lot of acreage per cattle. These cows need more space than the alpacas do by a mile. They need more space than the sheep do by a mile. So bigger animals, more space. So that also makes it harder to scale up your operation because if you're gonna increase your flock of cattle, you're going to need to increase your space significantly every single baby that you have. Whereas with the alpaca, if we have a cria, we don't need to increase that space very much or at all. So they're really easy to expand total amount of animals. Male cat wants to say hi. He's our mouser. He's our resident mouser. So that's about it. Main pros for cattle, lots of food, that's meat and milk, and they're pretty hardy. They don't require a lot to protect them from the elements. Main cons though, dangerous and require a lot of food. A lot of food, and a lot of water too. Bah. All right, let's talk sheep. Pros and cons. Pros. This is a pro comparing a sheep to a goat. Sheep typically don't break out of their fences as much as goats. That's a major pro for sheep, in my opinion. If you have a homestead and you have animals, repairing fences is almost like a weekly job. You're constantly repairing fences. And since we've dialed in our system where we have the animals that we do, I am repairing fences way less, which is a huge blessing. So pro number 1, these sheep do not break out as much as goats. Pro number 2, they produce amazing fiber. So you can see these 2 woolly sheep right here. They produce amazing fiber in large quantities. So that's another pro. Pro number 3, they can provide food, meat and milk. Pro number 4, they don't require a lot of food. So just like the alpacas, they don't eat a lot, maybe a pound or so of hay every day. So those are the pros. Cons for a sheep. Once again, harder for me to produce cons. We have both a ram and a ewe here. Sometimes they do break out, so compared to alpacas or other animals, they're going to break out a little bit more. Once again, I put that on the pro side because they typically do not break out like most goats do. Other than that, I don't have too many cons for sheep. I think sheep are amazing animals. They can provide you a whole wide variety of different resources, from their wool to their meat and milk, which once again, we don't butcher here. We're no butcher farm. So in my opinion, sheep are a great all-around animal. Very easy to scale up, very easy to take care of, and they're real cute. Let's talk chickens and ducks. Most homesteads are going to start out with chickens and ducks, specifically chickens usually. So let's talk pros and cons. Pros. Both chickens and ducks are going to produce delicious, highly nutritious eggs. Another pro. They're small creatures. They don't require a lot of space. 3. It's very easy to procure food for them. In a situation where supply chains go down and you need to feed these animals, bugs are everywhere. There's also a lot of techniques you can use to produce bugs. everything from a maggot shower, which is pretty gross, but a very effective way to provide them with insects, to having things like a worm farm, which we have here, etc. You can also create things like a mobile chicken coop where it can roll and they can pick all the bugs in one area and then keep rolling it every single day to feed them. They can also eat your food scraps. So chickens and ducks, lots of pros. Cons, one con, predators can eat them pretty easily. They can't fight back very well. Even if you have a rooster, foxes, coyotes, bobcats, cougars, bears, just about all those can eat them. Another con is they're not as hardy as some of those other animals. The sheep, the alpaca, the cows, they're very hardy. These chickens, they can be affected more by the cold for sure. If they don't have proper heating and they don't have enough of a well-insulated coop, I've heard of chickens' feet being frozen off and all kinds of crazy stuff. So, although they are quite hardy, I would say they're not as hardy as alpacas, sheeps, cattle, etc. Other than that, I would say, honestly, chickens are probably the best animals that you can have on a homestead. Ducks, on the other hand, one major con for ducks is that they get water real dirty. So we have ducks here, and you can see the color of that water, freshly filled up, already dirty. So if you have ducks, you probably want to segregate them from your chickens so that you're not always having to clean out your chicken water. But other than that, the duck eggs are delicious. So chickens, ducks, I highly recommend them. I think they're some of the best animals you can have, especially chickens. Chickens are easy to take care of. They produce amazing food. And in a pinch, you can butcher them. As I said, we're not a butcher farm. We don't do that. But you can butcher them in a pinch, so they can also provide meat too. Oh, one more pro too. If you have ticks anywhere around you, chickens and ducks love to eat bugs, so they will eat ticks from around an area. So they're great to let roam around to eat ticks. All right, so what are our top 2 favorite homesteading animals that we recommend for most homesteads? The first one will be chickens. Chickens are so easy to take care of, and they produce some of the most nutritious food. In a pinch, their eggs can provide almost all the nutrition you need in a day. Obviously, you need a well-balanced diet. I'm not a nutrition expert, so go seek and consult a nutritionist for anything about your diet and your health needs. However, it's well understood that an egg can provide you a ton of nutrition. So since they're so easy to take care of and they provide amazing food, that's our number 1 pick. Number 2 pick is going to be alpacas. Alpacas are amazing because they do not eat a lot and they produce amazing fiber. Fiber is a great tool that you can use to barter. You can create all kinds of things out of it. You can crochet it. You can make bags, hats, clothes. We even have some leather that has holes in it that we've made something to cover the upholstery. Alpacas, phenomenal. And in a pinch, they can provide you with food and milk. So those are our top 2 homesteading animals. Some other ones to mention that you might want to think about: horses. Horses are amazing animals for moving stuff. You can use draft horses to dig holes and excavate land, to hay fields. They have a lot of uses. So horses are amazing animals too. They're great for bartering as well. The main cons for them is they eat a lot of food and they're slightly dangerous. You also have cats here. You're gonna need a good mouser. Always good to have some cats. They're good at providing their own food. They don't cost a lot, but they want to build a relationship with you, and they will keep mice from eating your food stores. Dogs are great animals, good for self-defense. They do eat a lot, so you got to provide for them, and in an apocalyptic type situation, you're going to have to hunt to feed them. But they're great for self-defense, good for tracking, good for finding things. Dogs are very useful animals as well. Some other ones too, a worm farm is phenomenal for gardening and also for feeding these guys when we have too many of them. Your compost, all your scraps that you can't eat, you can give to them. Avocado shells, banana peels. I mean, you can give them just about anything. Obviously, you need to keep the pH right, but you can use your food scraps to feed them, and they provide food for your chickens and ducks, and they provide some phenomenal fertilizer for your garden. So you'll be able to produce more food in your garden. Now, there are a ton more animals that you guys can get for your homestead. The ones we went over today are mainly the ones we run. We have a few other animals as well, but in my opinion, those are some of the best right there. And we've narrowed out certain animals. We used to have geese. We used to have goats. We used to have horses. We've gotten rid of a lot of these animals because they haven't been efficient for our process. Every farm is different depending on the resources you have, your personality, your skill set. There might be better options for you, but those are the ones that you saw today are our top picks, and our top 2 picks are chickens and alpacas by a mile. So I hope you like this video. Let me know if it blesses your homestead. God bless. If you like this video, do me a favor, shoot a like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to share the video. And look at the description below. I will include a list of all the pros and cons of the best animals you can have for your homestead. Thank you so much. God bless.